Okay, so this video is kind of a deviation from the whole surf music thing, which I'll get back to soon enough. But I wanted to slot this in as, well, it's kind of three subjects in one video. The part of it will be going back to the first guitar journey video, where I was talking about Telecaster accessories. The second part is the uh, more related stuff about buying guitars on eBay. I guess I'll do that second. And then third, more tips for beginners. So, okay, so if you don't really want to hear about the middle part, you can skip to the other part. You'll already know what order they'll be in. But since I did a video on tips for beginners that was kind of about gigging and buying beginner equipment, that still ties into whether or not you should buy stuff on eBay, which relates directly to this guitar. But relating to the first part, in the first video, I had talked about how I bought some aftermarket things to try and put on those other Telecasters I had gotten, both Squires, and I was going to try and decorate them to look a little more country western or whatever. And as predicted, yeah, pretty much those parts will not work on those guitars. I talked about this in a previous video, but if you weren't interested in surf music, you didn't watch that video, which is why I'm saying it again here, where it's even more applicable. And I had also called a guitar store that specializes in the Fender custom shop stuff, and he said even on the more expensive stuff, they don't sell parts at all like that. So, there's pretty limited pick guards that you can find that will actually work. Obviously, you need to get the ones with the right holes. I tried to buy a little plate here, and the holes might have matched up on this, but they didn't come with 4 screws. They only came with 2 screws, even though you need 4 screws. So that was kind of annoying if you didn't have extra screws lying around. But then this bridge here was even more problematic. It had a nice decoration that matched this plate and just was not going to work at all. The pickup was going to be at a totally different angle. The string holes were not going to be in the correct position at all. This one, though, was listed as an affinity, and I asked the guy if it was a bullet, and he said yes, and I don't know which is which, but a bullet is supposed to have a string-through body. This does not have a string-through body. It still says Squire, and I don't think it was built from spare parts. But again, and I wasn't trying to put any of the stuff on this particular guitar, but just to, Telecasters are Telecasters is pretty much kind of the same thing. And if you don't know, the Esquire is the version that will not have this pickup. So if you look at an Esquire and you think, that looks like a Telecaster, well, it's the model that kind of predated the Telecaster. And there's history to that. You can find 800 million videos about it, so I don't need to go into it. Well, what else I was going to say about the knobs and stuff, we'll leave till part 3. So again, tips for beginners. We'll go over a little bit more about the actual guitar toward the end. In this case, however, I am going with the eBay complaint is because, I don't know if a bullet would have this 3-level or if that would be an affinity. I didn't bother to look it up. I just saw it for what seemed like a good price. And it says, Squire. Made in Indonesia. Doesn't say which model it is. Don't know. They sanded the back of the neck a little bit to try and smooth it out. Got a little aggressive up here, but not really where you're playing. The neck plays decent. Looks okay. Not too dried out or anything. Overall, fine. But when I tried to plug it in, the first thing that happened was it wants to blow my amplifier, because there's either a grounding wire issue or the jack is screwed up or both. So here's when you're buying stuff on eBay. First, preferably the seller has a rating that is more than 0 stars or 1 star. Hopefully you're buying from someone who's kind of reputable. Like I could tell by looking that the parts of this guitar by themselves were worth about $100, so I was okay with that. But then they padded the shipping. They didn't insure it. They insisted that it was broken. It must have been broken by the post office. The post office had it for a week. I don't know if they did something with delayed shipping or if the post office just sat on it for no apparent reason. But again, when I plugged it in, it didn't work. So I call in the tracking number, and the post office says it's not insured, therefore you don't get any money from us. I emailed him. He said, yeah, I'll look into it. Never heard back from him. eBay says that by this time, a couple weeks has already passed. eBay says that, they can't take the shipping money from the post office, which is not what I'm asking them to do. He's already promised me a refund and he's not giving me one. I've already taken it to a guitar store where their bench fee is going to be this much and the parts amount is going to be this much, which comes to about the same amount as the padded shipping cost they zinged me for. So if you could just refund me that shipping, that would be great. eBay talks in circles, gaslights me, does everything they can to not do their job, really made the thing, the deal transaction worse than it already was. So we have, in typical eBay fashion, if the thing is a little more rare and it's going to need repairs, then it might be still worth it to buy the guitar. But I basically could have got a new guitar for less money than I spent to get this one fixed. And of course, then it sat at the music store forever because they didn't want to put this kind of faceplate in without my permission. They wanted to put in a chrome one to match, as if I care about what should have been more like an $80 guitar. And then this jack, something I'm going to talk about more in part 3, but it doesn't lock in the way that I'm used to, like if you don't put it in all the way, it falls right back out. So that's kind of annoying, but at least it works now when I plug it in and turn it on. I don't know if I need to do that for the purpose of this video, so I'm not going to. But so yeah, on eBay, I doubt I will ever buy another guitar on eBay. I don't know if other people should. Again, if you know what the instrument is, what it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to sound, what it's supposed to look like, how much you're willing to spend in, necessary or vital repairs, all up to you. Like I said, from the pictures, I knew it looked decent. Just didn't know what other issues there was going to be beyond. Again, they lied because I don't believe it was damaged by the post office because the said, oh no, it was already broken. They had glued this piece in. The post office isn't gluing a piece in. That they had to then remove with pliers that caused even more body damage to put this new plate on the new jack that is not very good, in my opinion, as far as like the cord staying in. So that's kind of annoying, but not the end of the world. I didn't buy this guitar for myself, though. I bought this, so we're kind of transitioning to part 3, I guess, already. I bought this to be a beginner guitar for a smaller person, and I thought a Bullet was the mini version, and it's not, apparently. So speaking more specifically about the Telecaster, again, complaining from a previous video that there's no middle scale of guitars that seems to be for the correct age bracket for kids who are over the kindergarten kind of age and under the teenager kind of age, because this guitar is still too big for most probably 10-year-old students. But the other ones would be a little bit small, I would think. So the girl at Guitar Center said start them on a full size and let them grow into it. So, okay, that's what we're doing by default anyway, because like I said, this guitar was not the scale I thought it would be. And no big deal. But again, coming back to the parts and the pieces and the this and the that, this does not have the cylinder bridge and all that. This has a more of a Stratocaster style bridge with this just for looks. This whole metal plate is just to make it look like a traditional Telecaster. So it's just, part of the charm. Has nothing to do with the sound or the tuning or the playing or anything. It's just metal. But again, you can't replace it with the aftermarket stuff because it won't fit. The strings will be in the wrong place, and the pickup will be angled, goofy, and you'll have to drill all new holes and all that kind of thing. The pickup is probably set a little too low. I'm not sure. This one might not be as bad as the other one. I took the other one to the guitar store, and the guy said that pickup could probably be raised, but I didn't want to pay him to do that after I already was paying him to work on a different guitar. Yada yada yada. So if you're a beginning, player, I was recommending getting 2 guitars just to have one that you kind of practice on and have one that you perform on, or have a backup when you perform in case you break a string or something. And I don't recommend necessarily getting 2 guitars that are very different, though, just because then if you go to the second one in the show, it might feel foreign. It's not exactly the same thing as like when if you're like in a running team, or you run marathons or whatever, you have your training shoes that are heavier, then you have your workout, for your workouts, and then you have your racing shoes that are lighter for your race days. Not exactly the same thing with a guitar, because obviously if you buy one with a shorter scale neck to make it easier to play and stuff, it's going to feel a lot different though when you're actually playing the show than just being lighter and faster. So you want to be familiar with the instrument. And again, if you're used to a Telecaster and you forget your guitar and you go to a show and somebody hands you a Stratocaster, well, the 2 extra sound settings aren't going to throw off your brain that much. Oh, there's an extra knob, there's an extra. It's not going to be that, but the neck will be pretty similar. Whereas if you're used to a Strat though and you go to a Telecaster, then you're going to feel more limited because you only have 3 settings and you don't have a tremolo. So okay, yeah, less sounds, but can you still get through the show? Probably. Okay, maybe I can't play that one song the way maybe I have to kind of bend the notes more than dive bomb or something. I don't know. I had a whole longer kind of spiel about that maybe I'll get into at a different time. What was I trying to say? I kind of said that already. So yeah, I mean, but of course, this being different sounding pickups, slightly not as different from a Stratocaster as the humbucking pickups would be, for either of these 2 models. Again, if you're going from like a Fender style guitar sound, neck, everything, to an Epiphone or a Gibson Les Paul, then you're going to have a little, you have 4 knobs that you have to negotiate instead. You have a switch that just goes back and forth. You have a different sound. You have a shorter neck, typically maybe a heavier body, although a Telecaster can be moderately heavy. So that would be a little bit more of a different, difficult transition from, again, going from a Telecaster to a Stratocaster, not that much. I saw a video about country music players that said, they had all ditched their Telecasters for Jazz Masters because they only lost a little bit of kind of that heavy bite off, but gained more tone or whatever. But almost every country player I see these days is typically still playing one of these. So I don't know how long that, phenomenon that started in 1972 or whatever lasted, but this one's still around. It's still a popular model. So any questions and comments and stuff? I guess this went on a little longer than they usually supposed to, but hopefully not too bad.